fighter, are you ready? Are you ready? Let's do this.
Hi, family. Welcome back. And I just want to say thank you so much for all the love and support that you're showing here, the YouTube channel, The Gold Corner. I also want to welcome our new subscribers and the new audience. This is a channel that I created. My name is Joel. I'm also known as the Bearded Ref because I am a mixed martial arts referee. That's my paid hobby that I do. So I just wanted to welcome everybody. I created this channel, The Gold Corner, with the sole purpose to spread childhood cancer awareness, to be able to speak about the warriors that have fought this disease, this evil monster, the ones that are currently fighting, the ones that have already gained their wings, and the ones that have actually beat it, all the success stories that we've also had. So I just wanted to create this platform to where we can speak about what these kids have to go through, the lack of funding that we receive for childhood cancer, and just something that we need to do to be able to change this. And just a platform here of create a family of support to where we can be here for each other. And just so people can know how big of warriors these children are and continue to be. I did this channel in memory of my daughter, my 2-year-old daughter, who passed away a little over 2 years ago from neuroblastoma. And just God put it in my heart to create this channel to be able to spread awareness this way. And this is why this was the purpose behind the Gold Corner. So this week we have another powerful, amazing story. I actually, through networking, I came across the team Jocelyn page on Facebook. And just being able to see this little girl, everything that she was going through. And this little girl has actually gone viral on social media. She actually has well over 1 million followers on TikTok. And she also, if I'm not mistaken, has her own YouTube channel as well. So this little girl is all over, and her parents are actually very open as far as her treatment goes and everything that she's having to go through. And that is exactly what I wanted to create here. So I did reach out to Caitlin, to Jocelyn's mom, and she is joining us tonight. Caitlin Ducharme.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I got it right. Okay, she's joining us from Layton, Utah. And so, Caitlin, thank you once again for being a part of the Gold Corner. Welcome to this Gold Corner family, where, again, we just want to raise awareness. We, as you know, and not a lot of people know, we only get 4% funding for childhood cancer, which is not enough. And unfortunately, that is when the doctors come in and say, we can't do anything else. We don't know what else to do, or that's it. We've run out of options. And that is just unacceptable, because it's just unacceptable. 4 pennies on the dollar. No, that's not enough. So Caitlin, thank you once again. Welcome to the Gold Corner, and please talk to us about your warrior, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you again so much for having me on here. A lot of people have asked us numerous amounts of times, like, why we started sharing Jocelyn's story on TikTok and how that kind of started. And I think it's mostly just because I'm doing what you're doing. I'm trying to raise awareness more and just share Jocelyn's journey with everybody. And I've shared the fact that only 4% is given to childhood cancer. And I get so many comments when I talk about that, just of people in shock because they didn't know. So that's what I'm doing, and that's what I like doing. So I appreciate you having me on here and getting to share more about Jocelyn. So gosh, like a year and a half ago, back in April of 2019, Jocelyn was 16 months old at the time. She had started out of nowhere. She was overall always like a really healthy kid. And my husband and I, we had even joked weeks before she got diagnosed how lucky we were that nothing was wrong with her, like that she was this healthy child and we had no issues. And I remember us saying that probably about 2 weeks before she was diagnosed and before stuff happened. But so in April of 2019, she started becoming really sick out of nowhere. It started just like she'd throw up a couple times a day, and we thought maybe at first she had the flu because that's common. It lasted about 3 days. So we brought her to the doctors. I was back home visiting in New York at the time. And so I brought her there and they told us just to wait, that it's probably just the flu and just hold off. So we had gotten home and the next week she was still throwing up every single day. And it wasn't all day. It was just like once or twice. And it was just really weird though. At first we thought maybe it was a food allergy because it seemed like after she ate fruit, that's when she would get sick. So we were trying to like pinpoint different things she was eating and then it just kept changing. So over the next month, we just kept bringing her into her pediatrician here on base. And he just kept passing it off as the flu again. We're like a week and a half into this now. And I'm like, she has no other symptoms. This doesn't seem like the flu to me, but you're the doctors, so we're just going to go with it. So he was like, give it another week. We'll reassess after another week and come back if she's still sick. A week goes by. She was still getting sick. And at this point, it was progressively getting worse. She, on top of vomiting every day, she was really, really lethargic. She would sleep 10, 12 hours a day or a night and then wake up and instantly want to go on the couch and sleep again. She just wasn't wanting to be awake. I was working full time as well as my husband. So she was in daycare and they had told us that all day long, even when they would go outside, which she loved, she would just be laying in the middle of the floor doing nothing. And they had said it just wasn't like her. It just didn't make sense. So we brought her into the doctors again. He said, oh, it's just the flu. Like, give it another week. It will get better. So a couple days go by. We brought her to urgent care and they decided, okay, we're going to do some blood tests. We're going to test her for diabetes. We're going to just test her for all these things in her blood. Nothing came of that. At that point, we almost drove her to the children's hospital, but I was like, we'll just wait until like the next day and we'll bring her to the doctors again. And I'm going to tell them this time they need to do something. So my husband brought her in the next day. And this, I swear, it's probably like the 7th, 8th time we had brought her to the doctors at this point. He was like, all right, well, let's just order an MRI scan and we'll see. Maybe there's like built up pressure in her head from something. We'll see. So they scheduled that a week out. She had her MRI on May 10th of 2019. And we had brought her in. I told my husband in the parking lot, I was like, I don't think this has anything to do with her head. Why would her throwing up have something to do with her head? I was like, I think this is silly. It's not going to find anything. And we ended up finding out that day that she had a brain tumor. So we had waited about 2 hours for the MRI and the nurse finally came out and was like, all right, we've got like some doctors on the phone from the children's hospital and they want to talk to you guys. And we're like, okay, like what is going on here? And I remember I just had my husband take the call because I was like, I can't deal with this. Like, I'll let him do it. So he took the phone call and he was just really, really silent. And about 3 minutes go by and he's like, all right, we'll figure things out. And he hung up and he just said, they said that she has a tumor. They don't know what, it's just a tumor. So of course, instantly I'm freaking out. And I was calling my mom. His mom was already there because she was helping us at the time take care of Jocelyn while we were at work because she was sick. So that day they wanted to rush her by ambulance down to the children's hospital, which is just about 45 minutes away. And it was mostly just because they didn't think we could drive. They were afraid that with us finding out news like that, it just wasn't okay for us to drive. We ended up driving down there and they brought us to an emergency room. And my husband recently, we were talking about that day. And there's so many things that I can remember, like specifics. And then there's other stuff that's just the biggest blur. I remember we were just in the emergency room and so many different people were in and out of the room, like asking us questions. We were explaining the same stuff over and over again. But at this point, all we knew was it was a tumor. We didn't know anything else. We didn't know this was cancer, nothing. The nurse at the MRI place kept telling us on our way out, like, this is a life-changing day, but nothing else. And we were like, what do you mean? Like, what is going on here? So eventually her neurosurgeon came in and he was talking about how, okay, so tomorrow we're going to bring her in and we're going to do surgery. We're going to possibly try to remove this. Depending on what type it is, we're going to do a biopsy first. We're going to place a shunt because the tumor was so large. At this point, it had grown to be about 1/4 of her brain. Yeah. And so they wanted to place a shunt because the location of the tumor was blocking off where her brain drains the spinal fluid. So that's why she was vomiting, was because she was having really bad headaches. And so it was causing her to throw up. So he was talking about how they were going to place a shunt to relieve the pressure on her brain. They were going to attempt to do a removal depending on what the biopsy showed. And I remember my mother-in-law had asked him, she's like, so is the biopsy meant to tell if it's cancerous or not? And he looked at us and he's like, oh, I can definitely tell by the scans that it's malignant. And this was just like a huge shocking factor because it's something that you hear about, but you don't really think about it and you don't think it's going to happen to you ever, especially with your child. You would never think that's going to happen. So I remember we were all just so silent and in shock. And then after that, the oncologist came in and talked to us and she's like, all right, we'll just meet in a few weeks and we're going to be doing treatment plans with her. And they just kept saying she was going to be in the hospital for a while. So the very next day, they ended up taking her in for her first brain surgery. They placed the shunt. They took a biopsy, which ended up coming back as ATRT, which is Atypical Teratoid Rhabdoid Tumor. It's a really rare form of brain cancer that's really aggressive. And most cases, it's involved with genetics. A lot of kids that have this are missing a SMARCB1 gene. And basically what that does is it blocks the cancer cells from growing in a normal body. Jocelyn, when they sent the tumor away, they did the genetic screening on the tumor and they did a genetics profile on her. Hers came back that she actually carries the gene. So she doesn't have the genetic mutation for why this would have grown. We were basically told it was random. They can't give us an answer why it would have grown, but it just did. So after that surgery, we were really surprised. She was home within 2 days post-surgery. She was out of ICU like the first night. She came home within the first 2 days and she was just up doing her own thing, running around, feeling so much better. The relief was almost instant from the shunt. She wasn't getting sick anymore. And so after that, about 3 weeks later, she went back into the hospital, and that's kind of when all of her treatment started. She got a central line placed for all of the chemo, and she went directly into her first round. Of course, because it's something so foreign, her first round was probably the roughest. She was the most sick. They attempted a feeding tube a couple of times, but Jocelyn, she's very feisty. So she holds her breath if she doesn't like something, and she would pass out. And it was just the worst, miserable situation for her, for us. It was just not a fun time. So eventually we just stopped that and they started doing IV nutritions instead because she was constantly pulling the feeding tube out. Like almost every single day. She was not having it. So it was not a good time. Then also during the first round, I don't think they had waited enough time for her incisions to heal because she had a incision on the back of her head, the top of her head, and then on her stomach for her shunt line. The one on her stomach started getting infected at the same point when her immune system counts were at 0. So her body had no way to fight the infection off. So it ended up starting to ruin the line that goes from her head down to her stomach. So she had, at the end of that round, when her immune system was up, she had to go in for another surgery to get that whole line replaced to take the infection away. Luckily, once that was done, they gave her about 3 weeks of healing time, and everything has been good since with the shunt. After that, she just went into another high dose chemotherapy round, and that led us into August of last year. She was in the hospital about 3 to 4 weeks at a time, and then she'd come home for about 2-3 weeks, depending on the situation, and then she'd have to go directly back in. And then so August, at the end of her second chemotherapy round, they did the big tumor removal surgery. At this point, they had done scans prior to the surgery, and the chemo had actually shrunk the tumor over half. And that was something that we weren't expecting, because they originally told us from the start that it's going to help kill it, so it doesn't bleed a lot during surgery, but it's not going to shrink it. So when we found out that had shrunk it by half, we were really excited. Her surgery itself went pretty well. He was able to remove 100% of the tumor. It only took, I think, about 2.5 hours, which it was slated out to be like a 6.5-hour surgery. So we were amazed at how well it went. She did end up having a small stroke from the surgery, which wasn't discovered until like the day after. It caused left-sided weakness. She wasn't fully paralyzed, but she wasn't able to use her left leg or her left arm for about the first 3 weeks, which definitely is so much better than it could have been. It could have been a lot worse with stroke. So we were really lucky with that. So after that surgery, she was home, I think, within 6 days after that one, and she got to heal up. With ATRT post-resection, typically your final 3 chemotherapy treatments are higher dose chemo combined with bone marrow transplants. And the way they work those is before they get the first initial chemo rounds, they take your own stem cells and they freeze them. So that way, when the bone marrow transplant happens, they just give them back to you. And it helps boost her immune system a lot higher, faster. So she then went into 3 more rounds of chemo, and those were combined with bone marrow transplants. Those went so well. They had warned us at the beginning with the bone marrow transplants that she could have a lot of pain with it. Specifically in her legs, and they might need to put in like a morphine pump. And I think within those first 3 or 4 months during those treatments, she had only taken Tylenol maybe once or twice. Like, she did so well with it. She had thrown up only a handful of times, and she was up out of bed every single day. I remember the doctors, every time they would come in and check on her, they're like, she's doing great. Like always, everything's going smoothly. There were no bumps in the road. Everything was really, really good. At one point, she did have to get her central line changed because it just completely came out. Inside, it lost the place that it was actually hooked up into, because with some of her chemos, you can't have any tape on the skin because it can cause burns. So they would have to take her dressing off, and they would have to just wrap her in like a mesh. So of course, being a 1.5-year-old, it's just not a good situation. So she had to get her central line replaced once, but it was really an easy process. She healed up quickly, and we were all set for her final chemo rounds. She finished her last chemo round, I want to say it was November 11th, and she got to ring like the bell, ending her chemo. We did all that. We were really excited. Her doctors had originally warned us that with ATRT, it's very common to come back, but they had said because of Jocelyn's genetics and the way she was responding to treatment, they didn't think that was going to happen with us. They said she was handling everything so well, and everything was just going so smooth. So in December, she ended up going to Seattle for proton radiation, and that's kind of like the final step in ATRT treatment if the child's old enough. So she went up there and she had 6 weeks worth of proton radiation. I think it ended up being about 29 radiation treatments. So she got that and she got to come home in January. That went really, really well. They had told us these huge list of scary side effects that can happen from radiation, especially in the brain. When kids are young, it can cause a lot of developmental delays and issues. So this was something that we had to really debate back and forth if we wanted to do it. But we figured it would cause more good than harm to her. So we went into the radiation. She came out perfect, like no delays, nothing. Everything went smooth once again. She came home from radiation and they did her final scans. They did her central line removal. Everything was completely clear. There were no signs of cancer, no signs of tumors, nothing. This leads us into March of this year. And she got to ring like the final bell declaring her cancer free. That's all on TikTok also. And we thought we were done. We were so excited. We had said so many times, like, we're done with this, never looking back. Everything's great. So with ATRT, they do scans every 3 months during the first year and then more over the next 5 years just to monitor because that's when it's most likely to come back. She had her first post-treatment scan in July of this year. And because of COVID, the hospital rules are so strict. So you're only allowed to have one parent there. I was the one who ended up bringing her. And I remember we went there and we're like, all right, we're just going to get a scan. She's had no symptoms. Like, I'll be home at like 4:00. Everything's great. So after her scan, we went up to the oncology clinic and we went in the room and Jocelyn ended up getting sick all over me because of the anesthesia that put her out for the scan. So I remember her doctor came in and she had a social worker with her. But at the time I was trying to clean myself up and I wasn't thinking. And then her doctor just looked at me after I was cleaned up and she's like, all right, we have to have like a serious conversation now. And I'm like, I literally looked at her and said, you've got to be kidding me. Because we swore to everybody that we were going to be done with this. I mean, her doctors didn't think it would come back. Her doctor sat us down and said, okay, there's like a spot on her scan again. And sadly, it came back. She's like, never did I think I was going to have to sit you down and have this conversation. She goes, I didn't think Jocelyn was going to be one of the ones where it comes back. And she had told me at the beginning that ATRT patients are typically given a 50% prognosis rate. But when it comes back, it severely goes down just because with funding, they don't have a lot of research behind for reoccurring ATRT tumors. And that's where a lot of kids lose their battles is when it's reoccurring because there's nothing to fall back on. They run out of treatment options so fast. So we found out it was returned. We were still pretty hopeful though, because when they took out her tumor in August, they ended up sending it to the labs and her neurosurgeon was doing tons of tests on it and just testing it with all these different chemos, trying to find something that would work against her tumor. And they had told us it might not help you guys in the future. You guys might not be able to use this information, but it could help another kid. And I was like, of course, like sign us up. It doesn't do any harm for us. Like, let's do it. So they ended up finding some chemos that had shown in the labs they worked against her tumor. They worked against killing it. And so that was our next step. We were like, great, this should work. So she went into her third brain surgery at that point. He was able once again to remove 100% of the tumor. She went home the very next day after surgery. And this time she didn't have a stroke. She didn't have anything that went wrong. Everything was perfect. So a few weeks later, after she was healed, she started this new protocol. It actually had just ended as a clinical trial with St. Jude's, and our hospital was able to get a hold of the medicine and kind of just make their own clinical trial based on Jocelyn, just because they had all this evidence to back it up that this works against her tumor. So we were really hopeful. She went into that medicine for about 2 months, and they wanted to do another scan just to make sure things were working. If they were working, we were going to continue. She went into her scan, and this time we didn't have an appointment right after. We had one about a week later, which the waiting time is the worst. I remember I just had a really bad feeling about it. And I don't know why, but it just didn't feel right. And I remember like the day before we found out, I was at work and I was just really upset. I was really off. And I was just telling my husband and telling my friends, like, I just don't feel like this is going to be a good outcome. And then I got a phone call she was scheduled to have a lumbar puncture just to test her spinal fluid to make sure no cells were down there either. She was scheduled to have that the next day. And the nurse that had called was like, oh, so I'm just calling to go over Jocelyn's procedure for tomorrow. We've got a lumbar puncture with some chemo. And I'm like, this doesn't sound right. Like, she's never had chemo with a lumbar puncture. Like, this just doesn't make sense whatsoever. So I just started getting more and more suspicions. And then we got a call that her neurosurgeon wanted to speak to us at her oncology appointment. And it was for a pre-op. And I'm like, none of this just makes sense. Like, something bad is going to happen again. And so sure enough, I brought Jocelyn into her oncology appointment, and her neurosurgeon was in there, and he was like, well, there is another spot on her scan. It's about the same size as last time. And this is here again. He's like, so we're not sure what our next step is. He goes, we have to sit down as a board, oncology, neurosurgery board of the hospital needs to sit down, and we just need to talk some things over and figure this out. He's like, because with her going into another brain surgery in the same area, it can cause infections a lot faster the more you go in. So this was going to be her 4th time going into the same spot. So they really had to kind of discuss if this was the best option. A few days go by. We got a call from our oncologist, and she goes, all right, so the decision that we made was we think it's best for you guys to go to St. Jude's. We think that is where you guys should go. They have this new clinical trial that's going on right now, and it looks like it's got some promising data that's working, and we think that's what you guys should do. And so she gave us all of their information. She gave them our information, and we were prepared to go. My husband's military, so we were already trying to figure out stuff with his job, put us on medical orders to go there and figure everything out. The next day, I talked to a neuro-oncologist from St. Jude. He called me, and he kind of just expressed that he didn't believe their treatment could work at all. He said it's something we could try. He said, but the previous other ATRT patients that had went through it, they decided to completely stop after the first month because it wasn't doing anything. He had said that he didn't think anything they could do would help. So he was like, you're welcome to come out here and you're welcome to try this, but I'm telling you right now, in my professional opinion, I don't think it's going to work. And I don't believe she can be cured from it. So of course, like, instant red flags. I'm like, is it worth picking up our whole life and going across country for something where he's saying, I don't think this is going to work whatsoever? So I called her oncologist, and we had a hard conversation at that point. She had said that, once again, with all reoccurring tumors, and this was Jocelyn's 3rd, prognosis rate goes down and you just start running out of things that you can do. And she honestly wasn't sure of an option for us at that point. She didn't have an answer for what we should do, or what our next step would be. But she knew that I was really unsure about wanting to go to St. Jude's just because of the reason that they seemed like they couldn't help. So she took the next day and she had contacted just numerous amounts of oncologists from around the country, from different countries, just to try to get ideas. And she ended up getting in touch with an oncologist in Toronto, Canada, who was doing a MEMAT protocol, and it just involves like 6 different drugs with an intrathecal chemo medication that you can get either in the spinal fluid through lumbar punctures, or it can go through a reservoir in the top of your head. And it's something that has shown some promising data at their hospital, and kids around the country have done it. It hasn't always been good results, but there have been many good results. So collectively with our team and the team in Toronto, we determined that that was probably our best bet because it gave us a little bit of hope back. St. Jude's was kind of just telling us they can't help us. They don't think we can be cured whatsoever. But we'd had this doctor in Toronto saying, I think this is a good option for her. So we went with that. A lot of people were really trying to push St. Jude's on us because of the big name, because they think with the name St. Jude's, they're a cure-all hospital. And that is not the case whatsoever. And I still have people comment and ask, why aren't you guys going there? Like, they will find a way to cure her. And I'm like, they told us they cannot cure her. I just don't feel right making a decision to go somewhere where they're like, I don't think we can cure her. So best of luck somewhere else. So we went with this new protocol. Jocelyn ended up having her 4th brain surgery in the middle of October. And he was able to remove about 85% of it this time, which a lot of people that have followed our story for the past year and a half, they were very skeptical, and they had tons of things to say on why he was only able to remove 85%. They're like, he was able to remove 100% every single other time. Why is it only 85%? I try to explain it had to have been a health safety reason why this happened, which he explained to us a couple of weeks ago, that when they went in there, good news is majority of the mass that was on the scan was actually just inflammation and scar tissue. And some of it was the inflammation was caused from the chemo that she was on before. But because it was such a trial drug that they had never used before, they weren't expecting to see as much inflammation and scar tissue caused from it as what they did. So now looking back on it, they think they could have held off and kept Jocelyn on the medicine for maybe a couple more months just to see if things were actually working or not, because the tumor pathology that came back with this past surgery showed the tumor was actually dying. There was hardly any living, growing cells in it, but the inflammation and the scar tissue on scans versus the tumor all looks the same. So until you go in there, they had no idea. But they were able to remove 85% of the tumor that was in there. And the little bit that's left, we're kind of just going to be doing scans every couple of months again and monitoring that. And hopefully this medicine protocol that she's on will continue to just kill off the rest. That's our main hope of it all, obviously. But again, we're not trying to get our hopes up, because we were so hopeful. And I say this to a lot of people, that we feel naive and stupid now for thinking that this whole thing was going to be that easy the first time. So we're trying to kind of just stay guarded, and we really hope it works. But if it doesn't, at that point, we're just going to try to find something else. And hopefully the best thing that's going to come out of this current treatment is it's slated out right now for 27 weeks. She'll be taking chemos every single day between now and May, which is so long. Luckily, she hasn't had a lot of side effects from it so far. She's been really good on it. She does get intrathecal chemo put into her reservoir that was put on the top of her head every 4 weeks. That has made her really sick, but it only lasts about a day. So we've been really lucky with that. And she's just been able to enjoy herself every day. If things are showing that they're working, they're going to put it out for another 27 weeks. So she'll potentially be on all of this chemo going into next December. Hopefully things work. The biggest risk with this is toxicity, because she's getting so many different drugs all the time. If anything in her blood work comes back funny, then we have to stop it. So it's just a lot of what ifs, but we're really hopeful that since this is a long-term treatment plan, that things should work. If not, it gives us an extra year, whether that be like an extra year to enjoy her or an extra year for doctors to find something else. It gives us just that extra time to be able to hopefully find something else for her to hopefully cure her in the end. That's kind of where we're at right now.
And then going through all of this that you're talking to me about, and then still I see her smiling in her videos. I see her laughing and playing. I mean, this is, and chemo, that's poison being pumped into a 1-year-old, 2-year-old body, you know? And there's just so many things and a lot of things that really, really get me upset, you know, that we talk about that lack of funding, you know, when they're telling you, no, we can't do anything else, or we, you know, what we were talking about at the beginning. And again, we talk about the big name hospitals. Oh, St. Jude is just a miracle place. You know, we talked to St. Jude when Mia was first diagnosed, and they said, well, the hospital where you're at, did they already start treatment? Yes. Well, we can't take her anymore. As simple as that. Yeah. And they shut us down. I mean,
they shut patients down.
They do.
So
they
quickly.
Do. And people don't see that. People think, oh, St. Jude, and you know, these little kids laughing and playing around. It's not like that. It is not like that. And man, that is what gets me, and it gets me so much, and it upsets me. You know, that these things happen, and you know, having to go to a doctor in Toronto, because no doctor here in the States or the big name hospitals are saying, no, well, you can come, but we can't guarantee anything. We're just trying. That's just ridiculous. It's dumb. And I mean, I just, God, it really upsets me. It really does.
I think the thing that I guess gets me the most is everyone out there just talks about how St. Jude's will always find a cure for you. They will always find a way. But they were so quick to be like, we can't help you. And the second we made the decision for Jocelyn's tumor to be removed, we were automatically disqualified from going to their hospital, because unless she has that tumor still in their head, like, they want nothing to do with us anymore because our hospital took it out. So it's crazy that they're supposed to be able to help everyone, like everyone says, but we were turned down really quickly.
Oh, we were turned down just because Mia was on her second round of chemo, and we were turned down and we were told no. So yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah, there's so much that can be said. And, a lot of things that we can say about these hospitals. But again, when I see Jocelyn and I see her smiling and I see her, laughing and a lot of things are similar, to what my daughter went through as well. You were talking on where the roadmap is right now. So it's pretty much, they told you that your guys are going to go through this and potentially go through another 27 weeks. But we all know that roadmap can deviate, and we are hopeful with you. We are praying with you. And I have a team of prayer warriors that Jocelyn and your family are going to be in our prayers. I mean, every single day. And we know that, God can do miracles, and God is still doing miracles. So we're praying for that miracle, and we know and we believe that she can and she will beat this. Do you have any organizations that you work with or that have helped you, or just organizations that are potentially yours, or through her social media, if you want to talk about her social media here, so people can follow? I mean, seriously, if you're watching this, you really need to see this little girl's journey. I mean, she is walking, she's talking, she's playing around, she's joking around, all this while having gone through all this poison being pumped in and out of her body. And these are how kids are, how resilient they are, and how they can still smile through everything that they're going on. So any of those organizations or anything that you want to talk about here?
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing, kind of going off something you said that I wanted to bring up about kids just being so resilient, and how Jocelyn is just up and playing and just being a normal kid every single day. We met with an oncologist last week, because ours was out. And I guess he had met Jocelyn back at the very beginning, like May, June of last year, when she was very first starting these things. And I guess before he came in the room to see her the other day, he had talked to our nurse practitioner, saying he was really nervous to go in because he remembers Jocelyn from the beginning, and he remembers how cute she was and how well she was, and she was just playing around and everything. And he had looked at her chart and saw how many surgeries she's been through, how much treatment she's been through, and he knew how detrimental and how bad that could be. So he had talked to the nurse practitioner, and he's like, tell me what to expect, because I'm really nervous to go in there. And the nurse practitioner was like, look, you have nothing to worry about with her. He goes, she is honestly like the least of our worries when it comes to delays and just things that could have gone wrong. He goes, she looks and acts like a normal kid. And her team of doctors have always said that from the start. Her neurosurgeon, every time he sees her, he's like, she looks amazing like usual. He goes, nothing changes. She always handles everything so well. She's always so happy, and she just handles her treatment and her surgeries really, really well. And she recovers and bounces back so quickly. So that's just one thing that kind of has stuck out over the past couple of weeks, for what could happen. And I think just like organization wise, I don't have any specifics, but I encourage people a lot, if you're going to donate to cancer research, if you know a family that has gone through childhood cancer, I really encourage you to find specific organizations that are geared towards only childhood cancer. I don't recommend people to donate to the big ones, just because it's split up so much over so many things. One organization I really like donating to is Hope for ATRT, and it's all ATRT based, which helps us. And all of the money that they get in goes towards ATRT research, which of course is very, very much needed. Jocelyn, we posted a TikTok video the other day of Jocelyn just having fun and painting, and so many people expressed that they wanted to buy these paintings. Like, little Jocelyn is just a 3-year-old just having fun, and people are out there that want to buy them. And I'm like, that's insane to me. That's so crazy. So we had serious people messaging us saying, I'm being serious. I really want to buy these. So we made the decision that We're going to let Jocelyn just have fun and paint on some canvases every couple of days when she wants to. And we're going to start selling the pieces, but we don't want to profit from it. So anything that is made that's more than product cost, we're going to donate towards ATRT and childhood cancer research because it's so, so needed. I had the amazing opportunity to go on and talk with Colleen. She did a whole video on her channel, and this past weekend, she did a huge childhood cancer research fundraiser, and she was able to raise over, I think it was over $200,000. So it's just amazing how many people out there actually do care about this and where these people come from. It's just not something you expect before going through something like this, how good a lot of people actually are.
Yeah, I think you said it best. And that is one thing that I mentioned a lot in my videos. And that was another reason why I wanted to create this, is because a lot of people that, like you said, a lot of good-hearted people that do want to donate, they when they go to childhood cancer or childhood cancer awareness, if you Google it, the big names are going to pop up, right? So like you said, if you donate to these big hospitals, to these big, the big hospitals, and I say this all the time, you're probably paying the CEO's salary. You're probably paying for another parking lot to be built. You're probably paying for something else. So before you actually donate, I always tell people, do your research and look at exactly where your money's going, where your donations are going. And that is why, I mean, throughout this will be the 21st episode that I've done here in the channel. I've had a lot of parents that have started some nonprofit organizations, or that are being helped by other nonprofit organizations. That is what I wanted to show here, is be like, look, this person started this because of that, and this is where the money is going. So you know exactly where your money's going to go. You know exactly where it's going, and you're not having to pay for other things. You're not paying for other things. I think that's great what you're doing with Jocelyn, as far as her painting. And I did see that, and I also was able to see the story, the episode that you were all featured on last week. So yeah, I think, she's got a great following, and she's doing amazing work too. And I just think that's so awesome. And yeah, 200,000. I mean, and that is going to specific, childhood cancer research and doing all this. So I urge you I'm going to be tagging Caitlin, and right now I'm going to have her talk about the social media. That way you can also contact her if you are interested in buying these. I saw her in the video kind of painting those things. So talk to us a little bit more about the social media pages that you all have for her.
Yeah, so we have our main big one is our TikTok page, and it's just team_Jocelyn. And on there, I share a lot of what's going on with Jocelyn and just little videos of her throughout the day, just being a crazy, almost 3-year-old now. My Instagram's linked on there. I do a lot of more in-depth updates on there, as well as we have a Team Jocelyn Facebook page where we just keep a lot of up-to-date information and just a lot of stuff that's too lengthy to post on TikTok. We have also recently started a YouTube channel because that was really, really requested. Everyone wants to see more longer content of Jocelyn. Everyone is so obsessed with her. It's so crazy to me because to me, she's just Jocelyn. But everyone loves her. Our friends joke all the time about how they know somebody famous and how Jocelyn is the most famous person they know. And it always makes me laugh because I'm like, guys, we're the same people as we were 3 months ago. Nothing has changed. So it's so crazy to me. But those are our big social media accounts that we kind of just keep everything up to date, especially Facebook. I post a lot of lengthy updates, especially with Jocelyn's treatment plans and what we've gone through. Her entire story's on there and what is to come.
Well, she's just not Jocelyn. She's a superhero. She's a warrior. All these kids are. And a lot of the times people tell me, and it's hard for me to accept this, because of my situation. And I still battle with depression, but it does take special parents to be able to parent a child with cancer. It really does. People tell me all the time how strong I am, even though I don't feel it. I don't feel it. And I've had a lot of people, and I, just like you, I've had a lot of people that have reached out to me with perfectly healthy children say, Joel, we were not aware of this 4%. We see everybody hashtagging more than 4. We deserve more than 4. And they didn't know what it was until I brought it up. And it was a shock to them that that's the only thing that our children get. So, Caitlin, she's not just Jocelyn, and you're not just Caitlin. You all are superheroes, and trust me, I mean, it's difficult, and a lot of the times, and I've been where you're at, and we have zero strength. And when we turn and we look at our child and we see a smile, that just boosts it up 100%. Yeah, superheroes. That's what they are. So before we finish, Caitlin, I always ask this of parents on my episodes, and I want you to talk to me a little bit, and I want you to talk to other parents that are going through the same thing that you are, and also give advice to parents that have perfectly healthy children. Just give us some advice here for all the listeners here.
Yeah, so I think the comment that we do get a lot is saying how positive we seem with everything we post, how strong we are, like we always seem happy about it. And I think from the start, my husband and I have had like a mentality of, okay, this is what our life is now, and we just have to take it day by day and just get through this. I myself